All right, Victoria, I decided I'm attempt to kind of just show you a couple of my techniques. So please bear with me. So if it seems kind of boring, I'm so sorry, but it's kind of easier doing it this way to kind of show you exactly um, kind of some of my processes. And I'm using Creative Cloud, of course, um, but you can do it in any other probably any other module of Photoshop that you're at CS5 or CS6. Might be the icons might be set up a little different, but you should be able to get the gist of it. The first thing I do, of course, is I create another layer, a duplicate layer of the image. If you notice, the image is already it's a pretty decent image, um, but just to kind of show you the blending techniques, the first thing I do is I work on, you know, uh, getting the things that's on the surface of the skin. And basically, I just use the healing tool and I just kind of get those things. Any mark that actually sits on top of the skin, or if it goes below the actual skin surface. And I won't get all of them. I just want to kind of go through and show you what I do by just hitting a few of them because I'm gonna do this real quick because I don't want to bore you to death. But I would do this with uh, all over the face. Most of the time, I just zoom in really tight, um, you know, to get things. Once I there's a little couple little marks right there. Once I do that, um, I'll work on the eyes right here. Some people just duplicate the layer, but what I like to do, and it's just my preference, what I like to do is I actually like to do a photo stamp of the layer. That way, nothing comes through. So, one technique is to take your lasso tool right here and notice that my lasso tool is set on 40 pixels. Some do 30, some do 20, and some do 50. I think for me, my personal preference is around 40 pixels. I have it set on 40. And what I do is to blend the eyes in, I actually take all of this area right here. Once I have it selected, I what I do is I hit the command and the J button to create just a copy of that area right there, and then I actually move it above to the um, cover up the bags under the eyes. But then I still go back in and I hit the option or the alt key and the masking button down here, and it creates that black mask. And then I come over here with my brush, and I have my brush set on, of course, the softest setting that I can get, and I put the opacity at 100, and I keep the flow down at around two, anywhere from 2 to 5. It's your preference. And then I take in, I uncover. Oops, gotta make sure your brush is set on white, of course, because if the mask is on black, you have to do the opposite on white. And then you just take and blend that in nice and easy. And that's how the blending is really that's how you really get the great blend effects. And then I just come right back over here and I do the same thing. I go back down to the layer, the actual layer itself, go back to the lasso tool, and I just grab some of this skin right here and I hit Command J to duplicate it again, and I go right back up and I move it up just above the bags again, and then I hit Option or Alt on the mask tool, go back to my brush, and it's still set on white, and I just start erasing those bags, and like that's like my main trick right there. And then I go to the top of that layer right there. Something you can either group those or not. I'm just doing this real quick. Um, if you notice, there's she actually smudged right there. So I'm gonna show you exactly what I would do to fix that smudge right there. Instead of messing with the pixels themselves, I go back down to the layer and I get my little lasso tool and I to do the same thing, kind of go up, fix it right there, get my brush again, and just start and get rid of it. Real easy and real simple. Now it just looks like a shadow from the eyelash, which it really isn't. All right. Now to kind of do my little trick on highlighting and contouring, the first thing I'm gonna do is go in and I'm gonna stamp that layer again, kind of create a photo of it, and then I'm gonna hit the Command J to duplicate that layer, and this is what we call frequency separation. My bottom layer, I label it tone. The top layer, I label it texture. And what frequency separation does, it allows you to go to actually work beneath the skin texture, and you're working on just the tone. So this is the step. I turn off that layer, go back to the tone layer, filter, Gaussian blur, depending on where you're from, I guess. And I normally use a setting or radius of 16. Hit OK. Then you go back to the texture layer. Then you go to image. If you're working in a sometimes I work in a raw file, which is a 16-bit layer. But if the image is really great, I'll just work on a JPEG layer. Some people like to have more control of the color and all of that stuff. But if my white balance was set pretty good and all that stuff, I'll just use this. I'll use the 8-bit layer of the JPEG layer. I go to hit apply image. Down here where it says layer, you go down to tone. Then you want to make sure that you're set on the RGB, and where your blending mode is, you want to make sure it says subtract. Your scale is at 2 and your offset is at 128. That's what it's going to always be if you're working on a JPEG. If you're working on a raw image, you're going to go back to tone. You're going to set this. You're going to hit the invert button if you're working on the raw. Then you're going to hit subtract. Where it says your blending mode, you would do add. And if you do add, it's going to change it from 2 to 0. But because this is a raw, we're going to make sure we're in subtract. Hit the OK button. And then you're going to change texture, and you're going to hit linear light. And now your image goes back. All right. Then what you're going to do is you're going to group those two layers, and you're going to label it frequency separation. All right. And then from there, you're going to work on the tone layer. And now what you're actually doing is leaving the texture layer alone because your texture is still there. And you're going to blend the tone. And basically, the tool that you're going to use is your lasso. It's already set at 40 pixels. And what you're going to do is you're going to kind of work on where the dark meets the light. And that's what you want to blend. You hit filter, and your blur is going to be Gaussian. And this is where it's your preference of what you're trying to get, and just start working with it. Most people stay anywhere from the 30 to 50 range, but it's really up to you how much you want to do. And it's really your preference. And just hit OK. Now what other people would do is do the same thing over here. And what they'll do is go filter and hit the Gaussian blur again. I don't do that because I want total control over my whole image. And I'll just go through for each area that I select, and make sure that I have the blending is what I want all across the image. And if you notice, soon as you hit the blur mark, it automatically starts where you stopped at. All right, and I'll do the same thing over here. Go to the creases, and you would do that anywhere where light meets dark. All right, that looks good. I'm gonna keep that there. All right, now the next, I'm gonna come up right here where the shadow of the nose is. I'm gonna blend that. Filter. That looks beautiful. And I'm going to do the same thing right here. Filter, blur. I'm going to drop that down a little bit. I don't like that. Yep, there we go. I'm going to maybe around 23. I like that. All right. So now this is one of the things that I do is uh, I work. I put a lot of layers in my frequency separation layer, but just for this little tutorial, I'm not gonna bore you with a whole bunch of details. These are things that you can figure out on your own if you have a little bit of knowledge of Photoshop. But where I get my highlighting and contouring from, um, this is what I do. As a matter of fact, let me close this up first, and I'm gonna create another layer. I'm gonna show you a couple layers. Let me just hit stamp it. Some people will take and dodge and burn in this on this step. Dodging, just take your dodge tool, um, which is um, oh, make sure I'm on dodge. Dodging takes care of the highlights. I make sure that my dodge and burn, I keep the exposure as low as I can because I don't want a lot of effect on it, and I keep my brush very soft at the softest. And then you basically dodge right on the lighter parts of the face. It's almost like painting on the face. Notice what we're doing. And this is what it looks like. All right. And then of course you can control that by changing the opacity a little bit, whatever the case may be. Let me do this real quick. What I do is also create one folder and I call it finals. I put everything in there, and what this allows me to do is look at everything that I've done from a before and after standpoint. All right. So now that's one technique. All right. Now this is what I like to do. Let me go back to how I like to do it. All right. What I've learned is taking my lasso tool and going in and putting up and selecting all of the light areas of the face. And some people say, you don't have a lot of control, but this keeps me from painting actually on the face and all of that other stuff. Now, the trick is once you have it all selected, and what you do is you just simply push your shift button down when you're lassoing, so you can have it all selected at one time. We got a couple more light spots right there. We got some spots right there. All right. Now, once you hit the Q button, and this is how you do it gradually. All right, to give it a real subtle look. You hit the Q, hit filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I just start bumping that up to where you can actually start seeing the other features of the face. All right, and in this case, it's at 129. It varies depending on the image. Hit OK, hit the Q button again, and now what you do is you go in and hit the levels button, which is that right there, and now you can bump up those highlights as far as you want to bump. You can brighten it totally up or none at all. And I use the highlight button all the way up, and you basically just bump it up gradually. That way you're not painting on the skin, you're just brightening the pixels that are already there. And then you can turn that on and off and see the gradual, see the work that you've done. And then from there, I basically am done. Even in this in the frequency separation layer, I might add a little bit of pop a little bit of brightness on the lips or whatever the case may be, and that's real simple. Just use your paintbrush and make sure it's on white, and just pop that a little bit. You see how we just pop the lip, and then use your opacity to control that. You can do that with other areas of the face as well, the eyes. But right now we're just trying to show you the blending methods. From there, now what I use is a high pass technique after I do my frequency separation. And the reason why you want to do that first is because in your frequency separation, you actually did a stamped layer. But with a high pass technique, you're going to stamp a layer, but then you're also going to actually be able to see through it. So now I just hit I hit the Command, Alt, Shift, and the E to stamp that layer. I go up to Filter, go down to Other, and then go down to high pass. And it creates this funky effect right here. Make sure your radius is set at 30 and hit OK. From there, you're going to hit filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and you're going to make sure your radius is set at 10. Hit OK. Then you're going to hit Command I to invert that layer. And then you're going to go down to normal, and you're going to hit linear light. And you're going to get this effect right here. And you can already see how that's really making that skin texture come out really, really beautiful. And then what you're going to do is hit, you're going to hold down the Alt button and go to your mask. And it's going to put a black mask on it. You're going to make sure that your brush layer is white, and you're going to set it on brush. Make sure your opacity goes down. I normally go down to about 60 or somewhere in that range. And I bump my flow up to around no more than 12. I normally stay in around 10, 10 to 12. That's my technique. You can use it more, you can use it less. Just play with it, and you'll be able to see. And then you just increase your brush size. Oh, make sure that's set. Increase your brush size, and basically what you're going to go over is where the light meets the dark as well. And you can kind of, if you want to, you can go over the whole skin. It doesn't matter, because this is where you're getting your texture from. Real beautiful. Go around there nice and all of that good stuff. Let's move this down. Make sure. Oh, I already got the full screen. All right. And now we can turn that on and off, and you can see the changes that you've done. Really, really beautiful. Let's look at the overall changes. We started there, and we end there. Start there, end there. I haven't used any paint or nothing on this skin at all, but we have those highlights that are there. We got the contour. We got the contouring that is there. And if you want to, just for an added touch, you can go in and do some dodging. Do some dodging and burning on that. But that's totally up to you. Now, notice I put the high pass technique over top of the frequency separation. Watch when I go in here and turn off the levels in that face. I'm still able to see it. All right. Now, the other thing that I do that gives my images a little bit more punch than some of the other photographers around here is right on this tone level. I'll go in and I'll hit the mask button. Of course, the mask is white. I change my brush to black, and I go back to 100, turn that down to about 7. And what I'm going to do is actually sharpen my image a little bit without using the sharp, and I'm just using the frequency separation layer to do that. And what it does, it sharpens the actual highlighted objects and those things that you want to be sharpened a little bit. All right. I'll do that to the hat because I want the texture to show up in there nice and beautiful. I'll hit the highlights in the hair only. Hit the brush a little bit, maybe. I'll go in and pop those eyes a tad bit. Just around the lids, not the whole eye, just where there are light spots, maybe around the lip just a little bit. There's an earring over there. Pop that a little bit. Let's look and see what we did. All right, and you will do this the same. Notice Kalisha has a little bit of darkness. She has like a rash on her chest. It's just natural. I think it's a birthmark. Just to show you, because this is already, I can see through it. Watch what happens when I go in and blend that dark with the light. Filter, blur. I smooth that right on out. Now you have to be careful, especially when you have like dark bra straps and things like that. When your lasso tool is close to them, it'll bring that blackness or the black straps into the blending area. You have to be careful with that. But you would notice it when you do. All you got to do is just unselect it, blur, Gaussian blur, and blend that in nice and smooth. And already her skin is cleared up right there. And then you can go back to your high pass layer and work on that just a little bit more. Let's bring that back down to 60 and bring that up to about 9, just to blend it in just a little bit more. The other trick about when you're doing skin retouching is a lot of people just concentrate on just the face. That's not what you want to concentrate on, the whole area, because if not, it'll look really, really fake. So, and even on the hands, I'll back that flow down, really minimal, because you don't want the hands to look stiff, but you want to just concentrate on that. A lot of people, they forget about the very, very small details. Even, and I'm not going to go through it, but like even the little areas around her fingernails, the cuticles, you want to make sure that that you take care of those areas as well. Little flyaways in the face. You know, some you want to get rid of, but you have to be careful not to mess with too much of them. If it's obstructing the view, get rid of it. If not, you can just leave it there, give it a more natural look or a natural feel. And then from there, I basically do an overall adjustment. I brighten the image up a little bit, hit the highlights, go in and put a vibrance layer, punch the vibrance up a little bit. Let's look at this. This is the before image. That's the after image. And that's basically it. Then I go in and file, place embedded, find my logo, let my computer catch up, go down the watermarks. I have it in a location where I can find it pretty easy. Give this a few seconds. Boom. Bring the noise imaging. And I'll basically save the file. And that's basically, that's my technique. Anytime you have a question, just feel free to give me a shout out. I'm gonna probably put this in YouTube because this file is probably pretty large. Let me do this for you right quick. I want to show you something right quick. I'm going to let me turn this off because this right here is I wouldn't post that the way it is, so I'm just going to kind of show you what I would do. The reason why I turned my logo off, because once I do a stamp layer, my logo would be stamped in there. So here it's not. But let me show you what I do to actually fix that right there. I take my lasso tool, kind of give it the shape, Command J, and I move good skin to cover up the bad skin. And once again, I Alt, mask it in, take turn the opacity up, turn the flow up. Let's do about 6. Make sure your brush is soft. Oops. It's black on black, so we're gonna change that. Hit the X tool and just change the opacity a little bit. Boom. Now we're looking good. And that's it in a nutshell. So I hope this helps you out a little bit. Anytime you have a question, just give me a shout out. I'm going to put this on YouTube because the file size is going to be pretty. Every time I look at this thing, I want to make an adjustment. Watch what. Let me do this. We're going to put a little catch light on it because those that are in the eyes already are a little small. Let me turn my flow all the way down to a 2. Take my brush size down. Let's do this. Pop those out. There we go. Now it looks good. And look, I'm gonna stop recording because if I keep on looking at this thing, I'm gonna want to keep going and going and going. So I don't want to do that. It's just really for you. Like I said, if you have any questions, hit me up in Facebook or send me an email or something like that. And that's it in a nutshell, homegirl. Talk to you later.